Hi, everyone. This is Heather with the California After School Network. Thank you for joining us today in some very difficult and challenging times. This is our 10th Fireside Chat with Michael Frunk from CDE. And this week we are joined by Tommy Brewer, Cindy Martinez, and Angelina Hernadez from Think Together. Thank you all for joining us this week. And I'm not going to talk too long. The California After School Network issued our statement this morning. It's a little bit lengthy, but clearly states where we are at, how we feeling, how we want to and will continue to support our community. And so you can find that on our website if you haven't already seen it. I will just state that our team and our organization, we are unequivocally supportive of Black Lives Matter. It's as simple as that. We all are anti-racist, and that is all I have to say at this point. So, Michael, I want to turn it over to you to say a few words, and then we'll start with the conversation with Think.
Well, and welcome Tommy and Angelina and Cindy to our conversation today. And Heather and I were trying to figure out who we were going to invite on the fireside chat today. And Heather said, there's a couple women who have been like blowing up Twitter, like all over the place on the advocacy and just really doing a great job. I said, well, let me go check and see who that was. And so she gave me their names and I opened up my Twitter. And of course, Cindy's was the first one I saw at the top of my feed. And I clicked on her picture and there was a big Think Together shirt. So my next call was to Tommy Brewer, an old colleague and friend, and been in the work since really the first few months I was in this position 8 years ago. So it's great to have all of you. So as typical, I like to do a bit of an update about where we're at from a policy perspective. I can tell you that it's not lost on me, nor many of you, that June 3rd is the last day of the governor's executive order, and that happens to be today. And I have heard that there will be another executive order issued today or tomorrow that will extend that to June 30th, but I don't know that for sure. That's what I know. I also have been working the last several days here with my team to provide language that will go into the budget trailer bill. The budget trailer bill is a piece of legislation that explains and gives direction to things that are in the budget that are not directly tied to existing legislation. Many of you have responded as I've asked you to send to me what kind of flexibility that you need to serve your children and communities and families in the way that is best for them and most effective for you. And I've taken that and I've applied that to the language in the trailer bill to allow maximum flexibility on attendance levels, staff ratios, times during the day the program can operate, attendance relief in terms of suspending grant reductions for the next year. I've put everything in there, and we're advocating with the legislature and also internally here at CDE for all that language to make it in. And I'm smack in the middle of that process today. And we'll in fact conclude this Zoom recording and jump back into it. So I cannot, with my crystal ball, predict exactly how that's all going to come out, but your information sent to us has given us the both content, which we suspected, but also the backup and support to say these are the districts, these are the organizations, these are the community-based organizations that have asked for this, and this is why. So that is why this fireside chat and the conversations with you have been so important to me and to this whole process. Now, a bit of a pivot. It goes without saying that we're in a very tumultuous time since the brutal slaying of George Floyd. And in my own processing, my own journey, it's been a very emotional week, been a very emotional day. um, from many different aspects. But one of the things that I have realized is that as a white person that can check every box of privilege off that exists and is in this position of authority, that for me not to be clear and speak out uh, against racism and against white supremacy that is the foundational design of our society would be a racist and in itself a position of privilege. In fact, the ultimate position of privilege if I choose not to speak from this vantage point. I'm new on this journey. I'm trying to read, I'm trying to be in dialogue, I'm trying to listen. And but one thing you've heard me say on this fireside chat, to not do everything we can is causing harm. And in this case, to not do everything I can to fight a racist, white supremacist culture, white supremacy culture, is itself an act of racism and causing harm. I offer that to you. That's my journey. That's where I'm at. It's confusing. It's not clear. But I do it in solidarity with all of humanity to work together with all voices to fight the moral issues of our time and of all across the centuries. So that is where I'm coming from. I've been inspired by the number of leaders who have stood up and made a similar stance. And just yesterday, Randy Barth, the CEO of Think Together, sent me a video that he sent to his staff. And I'm going to ask our Think Together team to jump in here. I'll have a few words to say in closing. I'll pass it to Tommy. Tommy, tell us a little bit about where you're at organizationally or where you're at personally, and I'll let you hand it off to Angelina and Cindy when you're ready.
Yeah, I appreciate it, Michael. I appreciate your leadership. I appreciate the leadership of the California After School Network and everybody that's leaning into this space. We definitely appreciate Randy as he leads Think Together in terms of leaning into this space. Personally, it's very heavy, as you can imagine, right? But it's always heavy. It always sits right beneath the surface. And what many of us do is we kind of busy ourselves with our lives and with our work. And we kind of invest our energy and time in being focused. But what I'm finding for myself these last few days is that it's difficult to focus. And I've had experiences in the daily meetings where sometimes it's not as easy to contain the emotion and the feeling that sits right beneath the surface. It is my lived experience to have to exist in one world and negotiate my feelings and my thoughts and my beingness in a totally different world. Today, prior to this call, as a result of Randy's message, we had staff that asked for more space. And we have, at Think Together, created a series of forums that we just call Enough. And there are opportunities for staff members to just join in and talk about where they are, what their minds are thinking, what their hearts are feeling, what's happening in their homes. And then hopefully out of this conversation bubbles up opportunity for us as a community at Think Together and us as a community large to discover together what can be done. At Think Together, our mission is to change the odds for kids. And what better way to change the odds for kids than to change the world that they're growing up in, particularly if the world that they're growing up in, as it is unjust. oftentimes, Michael, you talk about love, and we appreciate that because love is an energy that is powerful. It's full of light. Cornel West tells us that justice is what love looks like in public. And what we know is that we need love, but we also need justice, because the brutality that's happening against Black bodies in this world, in this country, affects all of us. So I appreciate this forum. I appreciate this space. That's where I am. That's an insight into where Think Together is in this moment. I want to create some opportunity for Cindy and Angelina to add their voice. And then we can also talk about the advocacy work that we're doing as a form of social justice on behalf of young people in the state of California, to support our collective bid fight to ensure that we're properly funded to continue our important work. Angelina?
Yeah, thank you. Just want to thank Michael and Heather for letting me be a part of this discussion today. This is a trying time, and so I just want to thank you for letting me be a voice in this conversation today. But it's tough. It's tough to articulate just personally how I'm feeling inside. It's difficult to understand how our Black brothers and sisters are feeling, have felt in our history, continue to feel today. We're seeing centuries of injustice, of violence, of oppression against our Black, brown, disadvantaged, disenfranchised, vulnerable populations unravel before our eyes. And, we feel that, and we've seen that for generation and generation, not only in our country, but across the world. So, it's really heavy, as Tommy said, this week, and I feel like it's a cycle that we continue to repeat and feeling this heaviness. But I believe, and value and recognize our cultures. I'm not colorblind. I value our cultures and colors and the hearts of, those who are using their voice to peacefully and productively share what we want our future to look like, what we want our reality, our now to look like. And I hope that we're able to use this tragic moment to lift our communities and make a positive impact and a change for our kids and for those that come after us. As a mother, this is an important time in my own family history to be able to teach and share my own daughter what type of environment I want her to grow up in and the type of person I hope that she will become. So it's a big responsibility to use my voice and to share and to be the example, for me personally. And then as we have this conversation within the education field and within expanded learning, which I'm, advocately passionate about and believe, makes a difference not only in education, but in the well-being of the students that attend and in the communities that we're able to serve. Cindy,
thank you for that, Angelina. I just want to say that this time has really challenged me to look at my purpose, right? And so how do I advance my own purpose, and thinking about how do I use that to change my community and to think about the kids that have been in my care, the kids that I've lost throughout the years because of hate crimes, the kids that I've lost, and also the teams that I'm a part of, right? And also the teams that I've lost in terms of not being able to pay them adequately because they do work at a nonprofit, they do serve in a expanded learning community, and they are at a disadvantage. And so I think about that in terms of what can I do to provide influence and to lead. And so that has really struck a chord with me. And I do the best that I can to provide those systems of support for our staff, as well as all of my peers and all of my leaders. I learn from them every single day. But the situation right now is dire, and it has really challenged me to step up and meet this moment.
Thanks to all three of you. Yeah, thank you for coming as yourselves and as humans and sharing. One of the things that is a deep practice is to, as best we are able, with our best selves, listen and understand. And I was in a conversation earlier, and there was a African American mother who was emotional about the kind of conversations she was needing to have with her young adult African American boys. And someone, without any ill intent, said, "I can't imagine what that must be like." And she came back and said, "You have to imagine. You have to imagine what that feels like." And I think that's the hard work. We can't intellectualize this or philosophize this. I love the quote, Tommy, justice is what love looks like in public. Amen. What else is going on with Think Together? And you mentioned advocacy. Tommy, what else is happening?
Absolutely. So as Think Together has kind of leaned into this great pandemic space, and then added in this reality around social unrest, rightfully so, there have been a number of guiding questions that we have been working feverishly to answer. So what did we do as leaders during this great pandemic? What did we do for our community? What did we do for our partners? What did we do for children, for our employees? What did we do as leaders? What did we do as an organization? How did we improve our organization? Because we know that the world that we once existed in does not exist anymore in that way. So how has our organization kind of been able to meet the moment, as many organizations in expanded learning has had to do, make that shift, make that pivot in order to go to a distance learning format, in order to assess what the real and immediate needs are. And then as we continue to evolve, lean into the radical imagination and innovation that this disruptive moment creates for us. And then finally, the third question that Think Together has been really working hard to answer is, during this great pandemic, what did we do to help support solving the great problems, the big questions that presented themselves as a result of this pandemic, and that's expanded in this social movement space? And we've been doing some important work through our affiliate organization, Orenda Education, and in partnership with county offices of education superintendents throughout the state, to just reimagine what schooling looks like. We've been existing with a school model that was created in the Industrial Revolution. And now we have a disruptive moment that allows us to think about schooling totally different. And as an organization, we're taking the bold step of leaning into that space. And not just thinking about schooling, but thinking about all the ways that expanded learning helps to wrap arms around children, wrap arms around credentialed teachers and principals, and collaborate truly around what this space looks like. In terms of what we did as leaders, we also are kind of focused on this advocacy movement. And as we said earlier, advocacy at Think Together is not only about ACEs, which is important because that's the funding source for us so that we can do the important work. But when we make this connection between what's happening in our world today and the advocacy work that we're doing here in California, we have to be really clear, and we're becoming more and more clear in our conversation at Think Together that the work that we're able to do with 400,000 young people throughout this state is social justice work, is social change work. When we're able to look at our brown and black and white and Asian, our children, and say, you have capacity, you have gift, and we're going to create a space for you to explore, that's helping them to imagine a world that may not yet exist as possible, or imagine efforts that may not yet exist as possible in their own lives. So we've been really involved in the advocacy work, and I want Cindy to talk a lot about how we have stepped into that space and how we also have used the lens of social justice, the lens of equity, the lens of women's rights, and in our advocacy stance.
Thank you, Tommy. Yeah, so even when we think about advocacy, we have to think about the communities that we serve, right? And so when we first started this journey, the crisis, which still is a crisis, was our undocumented community members. And so knowing that there is a real fear for most of our families out there that are parents to Latinos, and knowing that at the time they were being ripped apart from families, right? And in terms of what was going on in the world. And so we looked at how can we develop a grassroots campaign for advocacy, not only for them, but to really teach them the gaps that they have within the power that they have, even within our own students, our high school students, our middle school students, is really looking at the system from inside out and really developing where can we be part of the solution. And part of that came to, we need field organizers, right? And so we leveraged that to provide that support to our communities who don't know how to necessarily engage. And maybe it's not even that they don't know, but they're afraid. They're afraid because they think that if they take action that somehow the government will figure out where they live. And so they're afraid of different other pieces. And there's language barriers also. We all know them. I've experienced them when I'm at the Bay and I had Arabic parents, right? And so for the first time in my life, I was like, wow, I'm on the other side since I'm bilingual, right? I get to see what some of our staff members experience on an everyday level. And so thinking about all of those pieces, we came together and really developed this grassroots organizing with our parents. We decided to meet together with our partners and really think through how do we approach this, right? Because we need the power of our parents, we need the power of our collective after school community, and you'll see that happening since I've seen this decade-long fight of how do we continue to fight for the funding that we need to make a difference in the lives of kids and our communities. So we started there, and I can tell you that our field organizers, they came with so much experience, so much passion, because if all of us know, we represent the communities that we serve. We come from the communities that we serve. So it just really hit home for a lot of parents, really looking at, wow, they really care about getting me the information I need, putting me with easy resources where I can take action. And a lot of them, even with our own staff, they have come back and said, this is the first time I've ever called a legislator. This is the first time that I'm stepping into the power that I have. And so we really are seeing that change transform within our own communities. And so we need to celebrate that, right? But as you know, we impact a huge amount of students and families across the state of California. And this is not a fight that we can have alone. We need everybody, right? Like if you don't know how you can impact your community, to talk to our parents after school and really connect them to it's possible to get more, right? Our elected officials are there to serve our needs. And so once they see how easy it is and the power that they have, they open up their hearts and they open up their voices to being able to be part of the solution. And we're continuing that work, right? But after COVID, as you imagine, we have had to have gone, how do we continue this work in a virtual setting? And so the power of technology is really opening up the waves of, not only is there a digital divide, right, but how do we leverage technology to continue the great work that we do? And so social media has really stepped into being that vessel for us to create change. And so we're really happy about that. The other thing that we've done is that we've developed a framework. So, excuse me, we have regional advocacy champions that lead this work locally, because as you know, across the state of California, there's different legislative targets, there's different elected officials. And so this change really needs to come from inside of the community. They need to know who their elected officials are so that they understand we're a community, we make an impact, and we're asking you to support after school because we do make a difference. And we've really highlighted the fact that this is an annual campaign. Legislators do need to hear from us. School leaders need to hear from us. Our partners and community partners need to hear from us about the impact that we make statewide. I mean, when I think about all the success stories that we've had, it's just amazing the work that we do, and we need to continue to share that difference, that impact at a level where everyone recognizes that this is the work that we do and that our staff deserve to be paid and to have additional hours, because we do great work. And I've seen them make miracles with what they have. It's amazing to see them put so much into their Lights On events, to their Fun Fridays. So I have to give kudos to all of our staff that do that on an in and out type of day. There's also a framework there that we use with our advocacy champions for them to provide strategies. We collaborate internally. There's also a feedback loop that we have so that we can continue. We use the CQI process with advocacy. How can we continue to improve? What are we missing? What are the blind spots? And so it really has been a full throttle effort that we've had to create this sense of change, to create a sense of urgency, to create a sense of I can make change and I can use my voice. So that is really inspiring to see our staff and our parents and our community members, even our district partners, our city partners stepping into supporting us, because they see us as a total solutions partner when it comes to social change, when it comes to student women's issues, African American issues, Latino issues. They really do see us as a vessel to create and improve the lives of children. So we're really happy about that work that we're doing in terms of advocacy. And I can't tell you how much I need to emphasize the same message that you've been telling us, Michael, is that if you haven't called, we're not asking you, we're telling you. If you really believe in the lives of students and in the lives of community, we need you to pick up that phone and text budget to 52886, because that is a simple, like 5 minutes, you could literally save a life. When you think about the students that we could leave behind because we don't have enough funding and we cut services. And the reality is that if I have a middle schooler out there who's Black, from the hours of 3 to 6, the hours of him dying at the hands of whether it's law enforcement or white supremacy, as you said, that's the harm that we're creating. When we don't take action, that's the reality that we're going to have on our hands. So it is a matter of life and death for our students, for our families. And so I can't emphasize that enough, that taking action is saving lives.
Thank you, Cindy. Angelina, give us a little perspective. We're running towards the end of our time, but give us some of your voice, some of your perspective before we close out.
Sure. Yeah. Thank you for that, Cindy. That was really powerful. We appreciate that. I just want to emphasize how this advocacy campaign has really hit on a lot of our workforce. So just, Think Together alone, we have, over 3,000 employees. I've worked in different agencies and expanded learning throughout my history in expanded learning. And I've never worked for an agency or visited an after school program where I didn't encounter staff that are so passionate about their work. And, you know, while they may not stay in after school for the entirety of their career, we are, you know, we're a field of people who care and who are true advocates for education, for children, for their communities, for families. And so to see some of our young staff or staff that have been in expanded learning for decades using their voice, sharing their passion and their stories, and how this field has truly impacted their community, their neighborhood schools, their families themselves. We have, you know, a number of staff members whose children benefit from these programs, who've raised their children in these programs, and so a lot of our team members, as we have engaged our teams in advocacy and in Twitter, it's free. You can sign up for Twitter and create a handle and have a platform to use your voice for nothing. All of our staff, you know, many of them have, you know, phones that they're able to connect. And so, you know, they've never had a Twitter handle before, and now they have one, and they're sharing their voice, especially in this time where they're able to share the impact that they're continuing to see as they meet with their students virtually. So we, as an organization, like many other expanded learning organizations, have pivoted and provided distance learning programs where our students are able to connect with our staff virtually, both in recorded sessions and then live. You know, we're really focusing on social emotional learning with our students who need that time and have relationships with their staff. Many of our junior high and high school students, they, you know, coming to the after school program actually spent more hours with their expanded learning and after school staff than they did their teachers. You're in class for 50 minutes a day, 50 minutes with one teacher, and you're in the after school program for 3+ hours. So they have these strong relationships with team members. So throughout this pandemic, they've been able to connect with those staff members who they have these relationships with. And now those staff members are really using their voice to advocate for the programs that they've seen impact their communities. So, you know, I just really am empowered and inspired by our staff and the work that they continue to do every day. And so I just, you know, I share this with the rest of our expanded learning leaders that will watch this and encourage them to join Twitter. If you've never used it before, it's very easy. And you can share your story and your passion with your elected officials, with our governor, with us. We want to hear from you. And we, you know, want folks to understand what impacts our programs have on our communities, on our parents, on our partners. And then share how you're feeling. Share, you know, during this time, you know, we spoke from our hearts and we want to hear from you. You know, how has that been for you? And what can we do to continue to make our communities a better place?
Thank you. Well, Heather, shall we wrap?
I think so.
I really appreciate all three of you and your voices, your dedication, your passion. It comes through loud and clear. And thank you to each of you as individuals, what you have brought to the world, to our children, families. Thank you to Think Together for what Think Together is doing in all the different ways you've each described. Thank you to Randy Barth for leading in the way that's values driven. You know, I just want to close by coming back to this notion of we have to do all we can. Our children, our families, our communities deserve the best and all that we have. And if there's some reason you're just do what I'm doing. I'm doing self-examination right now at a very intentional, as deep as I can go, to just reflect. Am I as a human doing all I can do? Am I doing all I can do to support Black Lives Matter, to support my brothers and sisters? As a father of an African American daughter, it's more than that, but it's certainly that in my role there. In my role in this position at CDE, am I doing all I can do? And I'm going to challenge, sometimes we like to leave this at the lofty level of the things we see on the news. If we're truly doing all we can do, and we're truly angry at the injustice, then take it down to home. Let's take it down to home. If you walk by a group of young people, children, in an after-school program, and you see the adult that's with them looking at their phone, do you get angry? Are those children getting our best? Are those children getting everything? If you're in a program and you're making just above that 85% attendance threshold, and then you're satisfied, some people call that complacency. It's actually complicit to harm, because there are kids, there are students that could be in that environment and receive that love and that connection, but they're not. So examine every aspect, like I am. Join me in examining all the aspects, from the big systems to the small actions in the moment, because it all adds up and it all counts. I've been saying lead with love to get to learning. I'm going to alter that, inspired by Tommy's quote. Let's lead with love on the path towards justice. Thank you. See y'all next week.